Mazi Okafor and his wife Obiageri were blessed with a set of twin boys after 12 solid years of childlessness. They had practically looked for solutions everywhere, and did everything within their means to have kids, but all to no avail, as Obiageri could not conceive until that very moment they heard the cry of twin babies they could proudly call their children. From that day on, Obiageri was given a new name, Mama Ejima, which means mother of twins. And the babies became the pride of Mazi Okafor's family. They were so grateful to God for finally taking away their sorrow and shame and giving them the opportunity to taste parenthood. Few weeks later, in a grand naming ceremony attended by the whole village and surrounding communities, the twins were named Cha Gozi, meaning God has blessed, and Chizaram, meaning God answered me. That day a very big feast followed at Mazi Okafor's home. The celebration party lasted deep into the night. Men and women, young and old, attended from Alandu and other neighboring villages. It was a day to remember. Guests had enough to eat and drink, and the atmosphere was filled with joy and happiness. Those villagers who were earlier speaking negatively against Mazi Okafor and his wife Obiageri because of their childlessness all hid their faces and had nothing else to say. Finally, they eventually joined the celebration and had fun like every other guest. Mazi Okafor became a very happy man, and he was thankful to God for his decision of not marrying a second wife in their period of trial. He was a good man and a dedicated husband who was not moved by what people said, but he anchored his hope and trust in God, and at the end he had victory. Years later, Cha Gozi and Chizaram were growing as very happy kids who lacked nothing money could buy. Mazi Okafor and his wife took very good care of them and made sure they remained happy. Cha Gozi and Chizaram were so identical that even their father sometimes was unable to differentiate one from the other. But he loved and enjoyed playing with them, and the twins were equally happy whenever they played with their father Mazi Okafor. The twins attended the best nursery school in their area, known for the rich and wealthy families. And they were very cute as kids. They later went to the best primary school as well. When they were in secondary school they became the center of attraction and were envied by other students. Mazi Okafor made sure that they were provided with everything they needed. While they were in school the story was the same. Other students struggled to differentiate Cha Gozi from Chizaram, and they both enjoyed the attention they got because of how identical they were to each other. In fact, wherever they went, people found it very difficult to identify who was who among the twin brothers. But their mother Obiageri had no such challenge in differentiating Cha Gozi from Chizaram. She did it with so much ease that it seemed she knew them from her womb. As kids they learnt to do things together. One could not eat without the other, and they always wanted to have the same thing any of them had. At the end they bonded too well and loved themselves without measures. The way they lived, it was certain that nothing ever could break their bond or what they shared, being identical twins. A few years later Obiageri gave birth to their daughter named Enkay, meaning the future is greater. And she completed their joy and they stopped searching for more. As years passed by, Cha Gozi and Chizaram finally grew up together and were inseparable. They were known for having the same taste for almost everything. They both bought identical clothes, shoes, and most things you could think of. After they graduated from the university, they ventured into business and jointly opened electronics business like their father. They successfully grew it into a mega trading company, importing electronics from outside the country, and they were doing very well together as brothers and business partners. Their business became a well-known brand and they became very successful and had so many branches nationwide. In fact, at their age, everything was going very well for them. They jointly had a very beautiful mansion in the city and had expensive cars. In fact, they lived comfortably together in peace and harmony and maintained the bond they shared. In their village Alandu, they also built a beautiful house. And their parents, Mazi Okafor and Obiageri, were so happy that their children, who were conceived after so many years of barrenness, had finally grown to be very successful in life. Their mother Obiageri could not thank God enough when she looked at them and saw the successful men they had ended up becoming. One day Cha Gozi met a very beautiful girl named Masanachi and they liked each other. Cha Gozi later introduced her to his twin brother Chizaram, who instantly connected with her and wished he met her first. In fact, Chizaram couldn't take his eyes off Masanachi as they talked that day. Masanachi, sensing Chizaram's body language and how he was lusting over her, told the twin brothers that she also had a twin sister named Olanma. She said that if she knew that Ngozi had a twin brother that she would have come with her twin sister. And she promised to bring her along the next time she would visit. Few days later, Masinachi and her twin sister Olanma visited Ngozi and Chizaram. It was so lovely when the twin brothers and the twin sisters met and sat together chatting and laughing. Months later, Ngozi fell in love with Masinachi and Chizaram connected deeply with Olanma. But there was a bit of challenge in their relationships. Masinachi and Olanma were struggling to clearly differentiate Ngozi from Chizaram. Sometimes, they would address Chizaram as Ngozi and vice versa. Months later, their relationships became very strong as they all seemed very happy with their respective partners. And surprisingly, Ngozi and Chizaram engaged their girlfriends the same day and fixed their respective traditional marriage ceremony on the same day. On the day of their traditional marriage, the occasion was so dramatic that their guests were heavily entertained by the twist of events that unfolded at the occasion. During the time Masinachi was to find her groom with a cup of palm wine in the crowd as generally done in their culture, Ngozi and Chizaram decided to sit side by side to each other. They were wearing the same attires and looking the same. Masinachi struggled and it took her time to clearly identify and hand over the palm wine to Ngozi as tradition demands. That incident added more flavor to the occasion. Moments later, it was Olanma's turn and the story was the same. But she finally managed to give Chizaram the palm wine and the guests cheered in support. Afterwards, Ngozi and Masinachi knelt down together and the groom's father, Mazi Okafor, prayed for them and blessed their marriage to be fruitful. Then Chizaram and Olanma also knelt down and received their own prayers and blessing from Mazi Okafor as well. From that day, twin sisters, Masinachi and Oyanma became co-wives to identical twin brothers Ngozi and Chizaram who loved each other so much. But they also knew that from that day, they would face serious challenges being the wives of two very identical brothers. They were all living happily together as one big family without any issue. They always had fun and spent quality time together as a lovely family and everything was working perfectly well for them. Few months later into their respective marriages, Masinachi and Olanma took in within the same time frame. They visited the hospital together for antenatal checkups and they were happy together as sisters and co-wives to twin brothers. During this period, the only sad news was that Mazi Okafor, their father-in-law, passed on before they could put to bed and give him grandchildren that he deserved. Masinachi and Olanma later gave birth to their babies the same day. And it was a very good news for the lovely family of the Okafors. Masinachi gave birth to a baby boy while Olanma gave birth to a baby girl. And they were all very happy and grateful to God for their happy home. Things were going on very well for the twins and their wives until they all visited the village 3 months after the babies were born, for the burial of their late father Mazi Okafor. After their father was peacefully laid to rest, there was a family meeting and their father's lawyer read the last will of Mazi Okafor to the entire family. The will was fair to everybody, including their mother Obiageri and their sister Nkeruka. But there was a clause in that will that categorically stated that between the twin brothers, Ngozi and Chizaram, any one of them that gives birth to a male child first, would be handed over their late father's most cherished precious item sealed inside a safe. And the attached instruction was that the safe should only be opened when the male child turns 8 years. Though nobody knew exactly what the item was, its worths or cultural value. But that caused a kind of unhealthy feelings and competition between the two brothers, which was natural. After the meeting they later returned to the city, but that will did not sit well with Olanma, who told Chizaram that it was unfair to lose the precious item to Ngozi just simply because he gave birth to a male child first. She said in her own words, "But we all gave birth to children, why are they feeling so important than us? Is it because of a male child? I think Ngozi bribed the lawyer." Chizaram immediately shouted, "No, please, don't say that. My brother and I grew up together and we have never had any issues in the past. I don't think he would do such, just to get an ornament or whatever the item is that nobody even knows the worth." But Olanma didn't agree with him. The next day she continued putting evil ideas and thoughts into Chizaram's head. She called him a coward and said awful things to him just because he did not agree with her that Ngozi connived with the lawyer and manipulated the will to his own advantage. Olanma said, "That item is too important and valuable. Otherwise, why would Mazi Okafor specifically make mention of it in the will with such condition? Please think and act like a man. On the other hand, Masinachi was not so happy about the will either. She felt that the condition given by late Mazi Okafor for the ownership of the unknown precious item could cause division. She was of the view that such thing could break a happy home, knowing the kind of a person her sister was. That condition in the will was not fair and it could cause misunderstanding between you and your brother. Have you noticed that since we returned back from the village, Olanma's behavior has gradually changed towards us? No, I did not notice anything. What are you insinuating, Masinachi? How could one be angry for something we do not even know the worth? Moreover, we can only know what that is when our son turns 8 years, which is a very long time from now. My brother and I had never had issues of any kind in the past, and he will never fight over such a minor thing. Gozi stated. As we all know, spoken words are like seeds, they don't germinate the same day they were planted. Gradually Olanma succeeded in negatively influencing Chizaram's thoughts over his brother, and suddenly he began to act differently towards Gozi. At their business place, Chizaram began to find faults in every business decision Gozi made. And gradually they started having misunderstanding that had never happened between them previously from their childhood. The issue even escalated to the point that they almost became physical and were verbally attacking each other even in the presence of their wives. One day, while they were exchanging unpleasant words in anger, Chizaram angrily accused Gozi of not being a man. He claimed that the male child who gave Gozi the claim of ownership over their late father's precious item was not his. This happened in the presence of Masinachi and Olanma, who were surprised and shocked at his statement as much as Gozi was. But Gozi, who tried to maintain peace and order, brushed it off and said, "My brother Chizaram, what has come over you? Please stop this false allegation and embarrassing statement. What exactly is the problem? You can have the precious item if you desire so and stop this madness. Enough of this, your embarrassment. How could you even say such thing? When you know very well that I am a proud father of my baby boy," Gozi said. But Chizaram maintained his statement, and even further claimed that he was the father of Gozi's so-called baby boy. Masinachi refuted the claim and angrily confronted him. "It's not true. I have never cheated on my husband with any man, including you, Chizaram. What nonsense are you talking? How could you lay such claim over our son?" Masinachi questioned. After that, Masinachi sadly sat down on the couch and started crying, following Chizaram's claim over her son. But Gozi held her and said, "Masinachi, don't take Chizaram's claims and statements serious. Something is definitely not right with him these days." The next day Gozi, Chizaram, Masinachi and Olanma were in the living room, and Gozi calmly asked Chizaram if he was serious with what he said earlier that their son belongs to him. Chizaram maintained his claim, and in his attempt to confirm it, he narrated how he got home one day and met Masinachi, who was not properly dressed, all alone at home. He said Masinachi mistakenly thought he was Gozi and affectionately hugged him and pulled him to the couch. And before he could say a word or stop her, she was already all over him undressed, and it happened. Masinachi recalled the day of the incident and felt so bad, but Gozi took her by the side and spoke to her in a comforting manner, but she felt betrayed by Chizaram for not stopping her that day no matter her mistake. "Masinachi, please stop feeling bad, it wasn't your fault. I know you would not intentionally cheat on me. Chizaram took advantage of your inability to easily differentiate him and I. It is okay. Cry no more," Gozi said. Unexpectedly, Gozi also laid a claim of fathering Chizaram's baby girl to the surprise of everyone, including Masinachi. Olanma totally rejected the claim as well and strongly maintained that she had never slept with Gozi or any other man except her husband Chizaram. Following Gozi's statement, Chizaram accused him of trying to get back at him by lying that he also slept with his wife Olanma. But Gozi also narrated how he was in the bathroom taking his bath all alone one day at home when Olanma excitedly arrived home from the market. He said that after she changed and tied only towel, she knocked at the bathroom door while calling Chizaram, but before he could wipe his face to respond, she was already inside and jumped into the shower with him naked, thinking that he was Chizaram. He said that before he could stop her, it was already too late and they ended up doing it. Olanma cried as she remembered the event vividly and called Gozi evil for taking advantage of her inability to easily differentiate him from his brother. Upon Gozi's confession and revelation, they all became even and partners in crime. But their trouble didn't end there, as Chizaram seriously and frantically maintained that Gozi's son was his. Following Chizaram's endless claim of the child and constant fights with Gozi, the matter was later reported to the village elders. The elders called for a meeting with the twin brothers and their wives. At the meeting, after hearing the bone of contention between the twin brothers, it was agreed that the only way to find out who was the biological father of Gozi's son and Chizaram's daughter respectively was to conduct a paternity test on both babies. The DNA test was later conducted few days after the meeting. And when the test results were delivered, a second meeting was held for the DNA results to be made public, which would eventually end their misunderstanding peacefully. As they all gathered, the first envelope was opened and it confirmed that Gozi was the biological father of his son. Chizaram was deeply disappointed and ashamed for a false claim over the baby. And when the second envelope was opened, to the surprise of all, Gozi was also the biological father of Chizaram's daughter. Chizaram was heartbroken and devastated following the test results, and he could not bear the shame. After the meeting was over, the next day Chizaram secretly visited their family doctor for a potency test. Lo and behold, he found out that he was impotent and would never be able to father a child. Chizaram could not deal with what the doctor revealed, and he suddenly fell sick. And day by day his condition worsened, to the surprise of the rest of the family. He was taken to the hospital and they were told that Chizaram was suffering from serious depression. Unfortunately, few weeks later he succumbed to the illness and passed on. When the sad news of Chizaram's passing broke out, the elders urgently visited and cautioned Gozi not to actively get involved in the planning and burial of his twin brother. They explained that Gozi and Chizaram reincarnated from the same person, and as such they were both guided by the same chi. And as a result, if Gozi gets involved and or sees the remains of his twin brother while being laid to rest, that after 8 market days of his brother's burial he would also die. Initially, Gozi thought that the elders were just blabbing, but when they explained to him deeper regarding the issue and the danger, he humbly distanced himself until the twin brother was finally laid to rest. After the burial of Chizaram, the elders called for another family meeting. In that meeting, they stated that according to their tradition, once the mourning period of late Chizaram was completed, that Gozi should take Olanma as a second wife as required by their tradition. Gozi strongly refused and totally kicked against having his late brother's wife as his. He stated that he already had a lovely wife and would not want anything that would come in between their marriage. But later on, Masanachi, who saw no problem in sharing his man with her twin sister, spoke to Gozi. And she said, "My husband, I think it is wise that we have Olanma as your second wife according to tradition. As you rightly know, she already has a child for you, and I really don't see any problem living with her as your second wife. Olanma and I shared almost everything growing up as twin sisters, and her presence gives me joy. Please consider it." Masanachi, it is not easy to manage one wife. Talk more of having 2 wives. I don't want to cause you or myself any pain, Gozi stated. But Masanachi insisted that the best thing to do was to have Olanma as Gozi's second wife. She recalled how peacefully and happy all of them were living together before the will was read and all hell was let loose. Weeks later she continued bringing up the topic and told Gozi that she and Olanma were one spirit and there shouldn't be any problem having both of them as his wives. After so much persuasion by Masanachi, Gozi finally agreed but warned that they should both avoid anything that would cause any division in the family. Olanma was relieved and happy that Gozi had finally accepted her as a second wife. But the guilt of her past actions was disturbing her, and she confessed to Gozi and Masanachi that she was the reason Chizaram's behavior suddenly changed, which caused the whole problem and eventually took his life. Gozi and Masanachi told her to put that behind her and never repeat such act again. But months later, after Chizaram's death, Gozi was still heavily grieving his brother's demise and could not forgive himself for what happened to Chizaram. Most times he would sit all alone thinking and reflecting over what happened and kept on condemning himself for the death of his brother. He always asked Chizaram to forgive him for sleeping with his wife. One day Gozi had a dream. In that dream he saw Chizaram, who smiling and looking happy. And he told Cha-Gozi to stop blaming himself over his death. He said, "My brother Cha-Gozi, stop hurting yourself for nothing. I am happy where I am. No one should be blamed for what happened." He assured Cha-Gozi that he was not angry at him for sleeping with Olanma, and further confided in him that his death was as a result of him finding out from their doctor after their incident that he could not father a child. Chizaram also begged Cha-Gozi to take good care of his wife Olanma and her daughter. That morning, Cha-Gozi woke up relieved and happy. He finally forgave himself and wholeheartedly accepted Olanma as his wife and happily lived with the twin sisters as his two wives. Some years later, the family increased in size as more children were born by both Masanachi and Olanma. But there was a twist in Olanma being Cha-Gozi's wife. Traditionally, for the fact that Chizaram paid Olanma's bride price before his death, Olanma's children fathered by Cha-Gozi belonged to Chizaram. And to maintain the tradition and keep Chizaram's legacy, Olanma's children answered Chizaram's name as their surname. As their children were growing, Cha-Gozi's aged mother Obiageri, who was mocked many years ago and called barren, was now surrounded by many grandchildren. Some grandchildren were from Cha-Gozi and others from Keiruka, her daughter, who got married to a very wealthy son of Mazi Okafor's business counterpart. Few years later, Keiichi, Cha-Gozi's first son, turned 8 and they celebrated his birthday. Finally, Cha-Gozi opened the safe containing the precious item in line with the instruction of their late father's will. To their surprise, the safe contained an old personal diary of late Mazi Okafor. They could not really understand why Mazi Okafor made a common journal look like something that had so much value. But as Cha-Gozi delved through the pages of the diary, he stumbled upon a diagram on the center page of the book. He read meaning into it and found out the hidden information it contained. It was coded details of the location where Mazi Okafor hid a key to his personal strongroom containing a vault. Cha-Gozi and his son Keiichi followed the lead in the diagram and later found the key and further located the main safe. When he opened the vault, they found so much gold and foreign currencies in large quantities inside of it. In the midst of the precious items was a handwritten will by late Mazi Okafor himself. The will described in details how Mazi Okafor wanted Cha-Gozi and Chizaram to share the fortune he left for them. In that will, he made sure everything was shared equally amongst the two of them and their respective families. According to the handwritten will, his reason for keeping it out of the main will read by the lawyer was to allow them enough time in their marriages to know if their wives would build the family or cause enmity between the twin brothers. But unfortunately in this case, the message was well understood, but the damage was already done before they got to see the message. Thank you for watching. Please kindly subscribe, like and share. Remain blessed.